Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas, people! It's Christmas time, so I'm wearing a Santa hat so that this video can be dated if you watch this a few months later. What's up guys, Sean here, and today we're going to defend Cenk Uygur and not so much defend his nephew. Because it's Christmas time and I'm feeling generous, but I'm not like super generous. But you get what I'm saying. So for those of you who don't know, recently some right-wing media outlets have unearthed some blog posts about Cenk Uygur, and it paints him as a sexist, supposedly it paints him as a racist, although I haven't seen a lot of that information if I'm being honest. And basically it's a big smear campaign and like this phony moral outrage, but it's against Cenk Uygur, so a lot of people who are normally opposed to this kind of thing have been jumping on the hate bandwagon. Now I'm going to actually read you what I thought was one of the more terrible things that Cenk Uygur wrote in these blog posts that are 18 years old, by the way. That's right, they had to dig up blog posts from 18 years old in order to perpetuate this smear. But to be fair, I'm going to read you one of the worst ones, and that way you can get a sense of it and react accordingly. Obviously, the genes of women are flawed. They are poorly designed creatures who do not want to have sex nearly as often as needed for the human race to get along peacefully and fruitfully. You can't really tell from that specific quote, but from reading the other posts about his rules for dating, which is basically where he's saying that you need to at least make out by the third date, and by the fifth date, you need to have sex. And my read on that is a lot of this was written in jest, like it was very tongue-in-cheek, not meant to be serious, and it's 18 years ago. Also, Cenk apologized for this.
So some of the stuff that was written on there was totally offensive, insensitive, ignorant. If you read it and go, wow, man, you need to learn a lot, you're absolutely right. So if any of you have already read it, I certainly apologize to the people who were offended by it because you were right to be offended. And it was a young, immature guy back then trying to show how cool he was by being edgy and politically incorrect. Well, what I didn't realize back then, and I think that I've learned throughout these years, is that being politically incorrect sounds fun to you, I guess, when you're a young guy like that, but not everybody sees it the same way. And if you're making jokes about sex as I was, you might see it a little bit differently if you look at it from the perspective of a woman who has been harassed or assaulted. Then you look at it from a completely different perspective, and understandably so. What we've been trying to do on this show for the entirety of its existence is to learn to empathize with one another. And look, it is not an easy process, and I've said probably about 1 million times on this show, the hardest thing in the world is to escape your own perspective. And I wish I could go back to the younger Cenk and explain that to him. And if someone had written this stuff today, I would probably be harsh in criticizing them on air and try to explain that to them.
And for the most part, it was a pretty good apology. There was a section in there where he blamed it on being a Republican. Even when Cenk was a Republican, he admits himself that he was more of a liberal Republican, because Republicans typically advocate for traditional values, and obviously by the tone and tenor of this fucking writing, Cenk was never really on board with the traditional values thing. It's all written from a place of Cenk being unhappy that he's not having as much casual sex as he would like to have. So other than that F you to Republicans in the middle of his apology was pretty good. He was like, I don't stand by this. It was 18 years ago. It was before the Young Turks. That's not who I am. I don't talk like that anymore. I'm embarrassed by the post, and that he fully accepts all the criticism and hate that he's getting now. Now for me, this apology is definitely good enough. I try and put myself in his shoes or put somebody that I like in his shoes. And if somebody that I like or you liked wrote this word for word 18 years ago, you would probably say it's fine, it's a joke, he was just shit posting, or whatever excuse that you would want to use. I really think what's happening here is that people who don't like Cenk are using this to attack Cenk, but they're not really applying a consistent standard. Like, believe me, I've made like 3 or 4 videos on the Young Turks. They put out a lot of garbage content that needs to be criticized. But digging up stuff from when he's like 18 years old, or taking videos that are like 2 to 3 years old out of context to get him and prove that he's not liberal enough seems really counterproductive, and it's something that I'm not interested in. And it's just another example of SJWs cannibalizing themselves. Sure, right-wing media outlets are the ones who dug this up first, but the Justice Democrats asked him to resign from the Justice Democrats. And that's what I really want to talk about, because essentially what's happening here is the Justice Democrats are moving towards a purely SJW direction, and away from the split direction that they were kind of founded on. So Cenk Uygur and Dave Kohler, who's been at the Young Turks since the beginning, he also had some suspect posts and he had to resign over them. Their number one issue is actually money in politics. It's not this intersectional hierarchy that the left is obsessed with now. It's money in politics. And the same thing is true for Kyle Kulinski, who actually resigned because the Justice Democrats not only threw Cenk out, but they started attacking him after he left, saying that he was promoting rape culture, saying that he was racist, and saying that basically, we don't need anybody in leadership who needs to learn that all this stuff is wrong. Believe me, I got a lot of disagreements with Cenk Uygur, but he actually pledged in his resignation that he was going to continue to support Justice Democrats. So for them to take that pledge and like smack him across the face with it is incredibly disrespectful. And that's why Kyle Kulinski resigned.
For this reason of strong differences, strong disagreements with the staff, I'm going to be stepping down from Justice Democrats. Now, I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I still, with all of my heart, believe that all of those members of the staff are vital and they're very important. It's beyond crucial that each and every one of us still support the candidates, because the candidates had nothing to do with any of this. That even though I'm resigning from Justice Democrats, each and every candidate still deserves our support, still deserves our donations, still deserves our time to actually put in work at the grassroots level and to fight for them to get elected so that we can get our vision implemented. Basically, what this comes down to is an amicable split between the media wing of Justice Democrats and the remainder of the staff of Justice Democrats.
And that's where we have a problem, because now the Justice Democrats aren't really that different from the Democratic Party, and they're founded on the idea that they were going to reform the Democratic Party. Right now, the Democratic Party is split into three camps. There's the Bernie Sanders camp, which is more of the socialist. Like, they got some intersectional garbage in there too, because Bernie Sanders preaches a lot of that intersectional crap. But for the most part, the Bernie voters vote on economic issues. They do not vote on race or gender issues. You have the Hillary wing, which believes in the Obama coalition, but is very corporate. And you have the Obama wing, which is very corporate, but also has that same intersectional coalition as their goal. So the Hillary and Obama wing are actually not that different on policy. It's just that there's some people who personally dislike each other from either camp. So now that all these resignations have happened, basically the Justice Democrats have moved completely away from the money in politics Bernie Sanders wing of the party into that intersectional camp right in between Hillary and Obama's wing of the party. So if you signed on to support the Justice Democrats, you decided you were going to ignore some of that social justice garbage in favor of getting money out of politics and ending corporate corruption in government, the Justice Democrats are only going to pay lip service to that, because in reality, they've completely moved away from that. They've ousted every member of their leadership who's super concerned with that, or they've ousted the majority of the leadership who's super concerned with corporate influence in elections. They're now completely going to play that intersectional game, and that's why members of the Justice Democrats are virtue signaling against Cenk. And the reason I really feel that this was used as a power play is essentially what happened was a large majority of the staff pledged that if Cenk doesn't go, that they were going to resign. And essentially that would destroy the infrastructure of the Justice Democrats, because, you know, those are the people reaching out to candidates, they're raising money, they're doing all the advocacy. And they wanted to do a leadership change. So Cenk resigned because essentially what was going to happen is he was going to end up being one of the leaders of a thing that was about to die. Because if the Justice Democrats had to replace the majority of their staff, they would essentially be done in this election cycle. They got primary races to run. Alright, so next up on the list is the thing that's actually going to be a problem for Cenk, and that's his nephew. Now, I've actually done a video about Cenk's nephew and how he consistently, obnoxiously virtue signals, but according to an anonymous source at the Young Turks, Cenk's nephew is super inappropriate around the office. And this honestly should surprise no one. The dude constantly virtue signals about how great of an intersectional feminist that he is. When we last spoke about his debate at Politicon, I played a mashup of him saying white supremacy over and over and over and over again throughout the debate. It was ridiculous, it was obnoxious, and apparently he's not very well liked at the offices at the Young Turks, at least according to this one anonymous source, which you can take with a grain of salt if you want. Supposedly people don't like that he's a nepotism hire, which I mean, I'm not surprised by that. A lot of people don't like nepotism hires. I mean, you could imagine this anonymous source probably came on as an intern, worked hard through the years to get a full-time job, and is still not where Cenk's nephew is just because he's Cenk's nephew. I mean, the dude is heavily featured, and I cannot for the life of me find what makes this kid qualified to be like the face of the Young Turks on Facebook. But to be perfectly fair, Facebook content is really made for stupid people. Nearly every Facebook video has those black bars above and below frame where they literally regurgitate the message of the video in an even simpler form. So in all seriousness, anybody can be featured in that medium, but there are people who definitely work their way up that he just kind of leapfrogged because he's Cenk's nephew. Reportedly, Cenk's nephew has criticized the women that work at the Young Turks for not being attractive enough. I'm giving you the very toned down version because it is the holidays and this is a family show. I mean, this isn't a family show, but I'm going to leave the links to the quotes on him for yourself since the primary focus of this video is defending Cenk. But yeah, all in all, it's not a good look for him. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Let me know what you think about the accusations against Cenk and Dave Kohler and the way the Justice Democrats kind of played this. Also, let me know separately how you feel about the Cenk's nephew accusations. In my opinion, the allegations against Cenk's nephew are much worse because there's a source attached. And for his accusations, this isn't something from 18 years ago or words taken out of context from a video. They are actual complaints about how he acts around the office. Now that we got all that out of the way, Merry Christmas, guys. I hope you enjoy your holiday. I definitely will enjoy mine. If you like this video, then please show me by leaving a like. You can support me on Patreon like these fine people right here do. You can do the same on Maker Support or make a one-time donation via PayPal. Links, as always, are in the description. Subscribe for more content. This has been Sean. Merry Christmas. Till next time.